Okay, so today, in order to try a lot more stuff and to deepen our connection with our bodies, we are going to do some pushing. All right, and this is definitely inspired by this old dance instructor that I had, and I worked with him a lot, and he was so fascinated by this scientific fact that he had learned that we as humans are push monkeys. He was so interested in this, and he would talk about it all the time because apparently there's a way to classify animals and monkeys by what their instinct is when they are pushed upon. If they're pushed or force or pressure is pushed at them, do they have the instinct to push back or do they pull away? And in fact, we as humans fall into the category of push monkeys. We push back. We have the instinct, the impulse, when pushed, to push back. It's just, a natural thing. We lean into it and push into it. And he used a lot of this in his dance and, putting this in where we use and play upon these instincts of pushing into each other and creating this new balancing point and this new center of gravity together as we're pushing in at each other. And it was great. It was very interesting. And yeah, it was like interesting food for thought too, like metaphorically. Really? If we're push monkeys and pushing is this instinct, how come we don't do that in life more often? How come in life, when life pushes at us, often I see people like cowering away or pulling back instead of pushing back? Although there is like this movement, and I mean, thank goodness for it, really, that Brene Brown is kind of spearheading of like, lean in. When life is pushing at you, lean in, push back. We're push monkeys, and so that seems that it would make good sense. And maybe, really, wherever we're intended to do, it might feel really natural for us to do that. So we're going to push and see how it feels and see if it does sink us into a natural place of, our instinctive behavior. I think it's fun. I think pushing is fun. And I don't necessarily mean it like, in this mean-spirited pushing each other kind of way. But there is something like kind of invigorating about really pushing your weight against something. So we'll start with, the alone methods, right? So if you're just on your own and you're wanting to play with pushing, you might push into a door jamb. Don't underestimate yourself. You could probably walk up the door jamb, if you're really pushing your weight into it. And if you can't or don't want to try to relieve all of your weight by pushing, counter pushing in between the space, of the door frame or whatever, then okay, but at least take some weight off. At least shift your weight, push heavily into it so that some of your weight gets relieved and, kind of into the push so that you are creating a different center of gravity. Because when you push heavily into something, you're shifting where the weight sits and where that gravity center is. So at least do it to that point. And you could also take it outside and push between trees. Sometimes you can find trees that are in, just the right spot or distance between each other to where you could really kind of sit with your back in it and like lift your feet up and push them against the other one. But try some things. Try crazy things if you're willing, crazy postures, or just basic relaxing kind of postures. But like I said, make sure you're actually shifting where the weight is, because you're not pushing enough if you haven't shifted where the weight is. And just play with it, puzzle through it, see what you can do with it. And then let's take it to the next step and let's ask another push monkey to join us. Because the fun just increases when we ask a human to join us. And see what we can do there. It can be, someone in your family, someone you see every day, or get adventurous and ask a stranger or a coworker, but let's do some pushing stuff, okay? And push in towards each other. It could just be almost like a yoga pose where you're just kind of leaning in and holding your hands against each other and pushing. And it will look like this though, okay? It won't look like this with like your hands touching, You should actually be leaning and pushing in enough to where the center of gravity and the point of balance and where the weight is shifts. And so there'll be some trust in that too, right? Leaning in and holding onto each other's shoulders or holding hands, but leaning in or back to back. Back to back is easy too, but really leaning in and pushing against each other. You can back to back and then really almost have a push fight, a good humored push fight, where you're like pressing with your feet and see which one gives first, and that kind of leads me to the next part. I mean, the first part I was saying is just find yourself another push monkey to push with, and then make it more playful. The next part is make it more playful. Really, like I said, make it into a game of push to see, if someone can get to the point of give, like, oh, you got me, or whatever. Push as much force as you can against each other. You can do it almost like wrestling. Wrestling is really fun too, especially if you can, trust each other enough not to kind of take it into a place that feels like, whoa, I don't know. But good humored pushing is totally fair. We don't have to be so worried about things like this when we know that we're doing it with trust and in good humor and good fun and playful, and that we're going to be listening to each other. Like if the other one says like, nope, then we pull back, so it doesn't have to be scary or mean-spirited or make you feel like crushed inside to like push against each other. And if it does, think about that. Like, what else can be done there? Is there anything you might like to try more in order to like reduce that? Does it absolutely crush you to even think of wrestling with someone because it like feels mean-spirited or something? I mean, I don't know. To me, it doesn't, and I can totally jump in there and, wrestling, it might be too strong of a word. Let's talk that through, because it's really pushing, it could be like sitting on the floor and, trying to push each other over with your back, or, holding shoulder to shoulder and seeing how far you can push each other back. Or it could be, laying on the floor and seeing if you can push the other one all the way down, and the other one's trying to sit up as you're trying to push them down, and they're trying to push you down and you're trying to sit up. There's push to that. So it doesn't have to be like any other particular goal. I mean, not like strikes and blows are happening here. We're talking about pushing. Or it could be something easier, like if you're worried about the concept of even wrestling, it could be totally like, I'm going to put my arm on this table and you're going to try to push it off. Or, I'm going to bend my knee at a right angle and you're going to try to push my heel into my butt so that the angle closes. My knee's going to be like this, and I'm going to push against that with my shin so that can't happen. All these kind of things, ways that you can push, like arm wrestling. We could even arm wrestle, but push. It's about, ways to push and to meet up against resistance and still push into that resistance for further strength, and to be able, and we're getting into the metaphor now, right? Because isn't that interesting and useful to be able to use in life too, being able to push back when something's pushing at you and use it for further strength, and to be able to have the balance point be brand new and shifted from your normal balance point, and the gravity can shift, and where the weight in the situation is can shift because something is pushing, life is pushing, whatever, and you're okay. You can adapt. There's resilience. You can find a new balance point and be okay with it, and there can be fun in it and enjoyment, and there's satisfaction in it because you're feeling and experiencing your resilience, and I feel like this is absolutely what some of these push activities can provide, and they definitely do for me. Plus they're just like invigorating. They tap you into that natural push monkey place, and they're playful. So yeah, you can feel your own strength and do a little pushing today. Test your resilience, build your resilience, find new balancing points, push, and see how you like it.